Interesting sky out there. Welcome back. It is 20 till 7 on your Friday morning. Big headline this week when ABC suspended late-night host Jimmy Kimmel indefinitely over comments he made about the Charlie Kirk assassination. Regardless of how any of us feel about what he actually said, does that mean that freedom of speech only goes so far? We're exploring that idea this morning for Legally Speaking with attorney Dave Beatrice. Dave, good morning.
Good morning. I think everyone out in the Valley kind of knows where I fall on the political spectrum, but I'm going to examine this from strictly a legal
sense. Yes.
No politics in this. Now, the First Amendment, we have the Bill of Rights, right? We fought a Revolutionary War, and we said, government, you can rule us, but the framers of the Constitution studied history and said, this is how people get too much power. So that's why we have three parts of government, checks and balances on each other, and that's why we have these 10 amendments. You know, everyone knows what the Second Amendment is. We have a First Amendment, Second Amendment, Third Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, Sixth Amendment, Seventh Amendment, Eighth Amendment, Ninth Amendment, and a 10th Amendment, which is very important. Now, those amendments only apply to the government.
Okay.
A private employer can, like ABC, can say, we don't like what Jimmy Kimmel's saying, and independently fire him. That's totally
that does
allowed.
Not have anything to do with freedom of speech.
That does not have anything to do with freedom of speech. Where this crosses the line, and whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, the First Amendment needs to be protected. Where this crossed the line is the president was constantly criticizing Jimmy Kimmel, which is his First Amendment right to do too, right? And so, but where it crossed the line is Brendan Carr, who's the head of FCC, was on the Benny Johnson show. Benny Johnson is a conservative broadcaster, and Brendan Carr fired a shot across the bow. He said to ABC, hey, you're coming up. We might not renew your FCC license. And ABC heard that, and you got to follow the money. Look, stations used to be locally owned and operated. The nice thing about WFMJ today, this is the NBC affiliate, it's locally owned.
Still.
Okay? Still locally owned and locally operated. The other two stations in this area, the WIT, I know you're supposed to say them, WIT and WKBN, are owned by Nexstar. Nexstar is trying to do this huge merger, okay, where they're thinking that they passed the law saying, or they passed the regulation saying, no one company can own more than 39% of the companies. Well, if they buy their competitor, they're going to own more than 39%, and they need the FCC to approve that. So when you have the FCC chairman saying, hey, we might not approve that if you don't cancel Steve or Colbert, or they're doing something over at ABC, we might not approve that, or we might take your license if you don't cancel Jimmy Kimmel, that has a chilling effect. Look, my fear is, look, what happened to Charlie Kirk was horrendous. I condemn it in its purest sense. Nobody in this country should be assassinated for their political views. But hate speech is protected speech. Nazis have a right, a constitutional right, to march down Market Street and spew their hate. If they're going to use that to pass hate speech laws, if the government could control what you could say, then they could control what you think, then you no longer live in a free country. Everyone should be worried about this because it is government actually censoring it. And we have these things in our hand. I don't know if you have one at home. I have one at home. It's called a remote. If you don't like what someone's saying, you just hit the button and you go elsewhere. You shop with your dollars. But I think from a strictly legal sense, if you look at this very objectively, government sends signals out. He sends out a bat signal to Brendan Carr. Hey, I don't like this Jimmy Kimmel. He should be taken off the air. Jimmy Kimmel does a podcast with Benny Johnson. Brendan Carr says, hey, we don't like what Jimmy Kimmel says. They need to regulate what he's saying. You know, we have authority over their licenses. And you have shareholders and stuff over at ABC, and they're a corporation. They're worried. They bended the knee. Nexstar wants to buy their largest competitor. It's a $6 billion deal. And they said, hey, we want Stephen Colbert off, and his show's going to be canceled. So that's where it sits. And now you have a lot of YouTubers coming up. And now, if you've noticed, the president is sort of going to now start putting pressure on Google, who owns YouTube. And, you know, it's not good, folks. It's just not good. So, you know, you should worry about your First Amendment. It's not a Democratic issue. It's not a Republican issue. It is, you have a right to free speech. which means people are going to say things you don't like. That's the whole idea of free speech. But can you imagine if President Biden said to his FCC chairman, hey, I don't like what Brian Kilmeade said. You either fire him or we might, start regulating you. The right would be going crazy. They would be going crazy. That's what happened here, folks. Legitimately, that's what happened. And you cannot sugarcoat it in any way. And that's my strict legal analysis. We are on a downward slope on freedom of speech. And, folks, you better be worried about your freedom of speech in this country. There.
All right.
How's that? That's a good. And I brought the goodies.
There you go. He did.
I brought the donuts, and
we're well taken care of.
Everyone asks me about their donuts. There we go.
They're there, and the box is full. I have not sampled, just for the record, so nobody's thrown me under the bus.